Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. The old .30 caliber rifle may have been made in Italy. Ted Vincent placed it on a tree growing on a hill overlooking the pool on the estate. Ted was wearing rubber gloves that reached to his elbows. He had a small monocle-like device that allowed him to view the pool. However, he was only 70 yards away from several sun loungers set up by the pool. The pool was located on the estate of Byron Diamond, a millionaire entrepreneur. The tree was located outside the estate. However, it is close enough. Byron Diamond was the employer of Kara, Ted's wife. She was a beauty, with dark brown hair and a pleasant figure. She was going to spend the weekend at Diamond Manor, as she had been doing for the last 4 weekends. She made no secret of it, telling Ted in advance of her intentions to get in touch with her boss. However, only on weekends, when Diamond's wife, Miranda, was engaged in charity work. Ted didn't know if Diamond's wife knew about Kara Vincent's visits. There were staff at the estate, so she probably knew. Diamond and Kara walked over to the pool. Diamond was wearing swimming trunks, and Kara was wearing only a thong, and rather meager ones. It wasn't the first time Ted had seen the two of them half naked. In recent weeks, he has thoroughly explored the grounds of the estate. Now he felt that it was time to resolve the issue of the life and death of two lovers. Diamond was as handsome as a model, with a slim, muscular build. He and Kara made a spectacular couple, especially in the way they were now. Ted could understand to some extent why Kara was hooked on Diamond, but to understand does not mean to accept. From the very beginning, when she announced her intentions, he was categorically against it. He and Kara were 37 years old. They had been married for 16 years and had twin daughters, Claire and Beth. The children were 15 and they looked like their mother. At the moment, they were at Ted's parents' house where they spent a week before going to football camp. They inherited their father's athletic abilities. At the moment, Ted was allegedly riding a bike with his best friend Miles Jacobs. The two have been close friends since first grade. They were now partners in a business that sold financial advice to companies and some individuals. M&T was founded as soon as Ted graduated from college. Miles didn't go to college. His parents couldn't afford it, and Miles wanted to succeed in this world. He was a sociable guy and was a successful salesman. As part of their firm, he was engaged in the sale of their services. These services were excellent, and the company grew. Now both men were quite wealthy, married men with children of about the same age who go to the same school. Miles was married to Robin, the love of his childhood. Well, Robin was the childhood sweetheart of both Miles and Ted. Miles won this competition. Ted never really understood why. Miles and Ted were very similar in appearance, both dark-skinned, 6 feet tall, of medium build. Who could choose? But some people just fell in love. It happened to Miles and Robin. Ted is used to it. He found Kara in college, and she was all he ever needed. A few months ago, Miles was waiting on the bike path some distance away, and Kara was about to get a big surprise. Ted saw Kara and Diamond hug. The hug turned into a kiss. As soon as they broke off the kiss and Kara moved a short distance away, Diamond's chest exploded. Diamond's body broke away from Kara. She screamed, covering her face with her hands, and fell to the ground. There was blood everywhere. She crawled to the pool and dived into it. Ted has seen enough. He climbed down from the tree and quickly ran up the hill, throwing an old rifle into the bushes on the way. He took off the butt cover and gloves and stuffed them all into a plastic bag on his belt and jogged up the hill to his bike. He jumped into the saddle, headed for the main bike path and rode out onto it, after looking around that there was no one nearby. Ted rode his bike for about 3 miles and joined Miles. They continued on their way. About 6 miles away, Ted left a plastic bag in a dumpster behind a gas station. Then they finished their ride and drove up to Miles's house. The rifle didn't bother Ted. He assumed that the police would find her. They won't be able to get DNA, and he was sure that nothing could be traced. He had had the rifle for many years. He got it from a guy he knew who was dying and didn't want to leave the gun to his family. There were 2 rifles and 2 pistols. The other rifle was also from the Second World War, but it was bigger and more valuable. Apart from the rifle used today, the rest of the weapons were in Ted's gun safe along with the weapons he inherited from his grandfather. This rifle was never in the safe. Ted kept it separately in a secret place in a closet in the garage. When Kara announced her intentions to have an affair with Diamond, Ted immediately thought of this rifle. Over the next week, he took her to his suburban area to make sure she was shooting accurately. It took a little work. He sawed off the number on the inside and was sure that the rifle was good enough for its purpose. Robin was there to greet them when they got to Miles's house. She expected them to return at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they arrived just at that time. She made cold beers for each of them and asked, "How was the trip, guys?" Miles smiled at his wife. "It was great. The track wasn't very crowded and we had a good workout, 4 hours or so." Robin hugged them both. She was a pleasant-looking woman their age. She had dark hair and was slightly overweight. Ted had always found her attractive. They usually flirted a little. But she was Miles's woman, and all three of them knew it. The men drank beer and took a shower in the pool house, after which they sat around the pool. Robin asked, "Ted, how long do you think this story with Kara will last?" She knew about what Kara did on weekends. Ted told them both. They were his closest friends and the people he turned to when he was in trouble or needed calm advice. In Robin's opinion, Ted should have kicked Kara out right away. But Miles thought otherwise. He offered to wait for the divorce until they could protect the company and until the twins were older. But Ted already knew what he was going to do. He had no pity for guys who used other people's wives, especially his own. So having developed a plan, Ted talked about it with Miles. Together they clarified the details. Ted answered Robin's question. "I have no idea, but Robin, I hope to continue our relationship with Nora." Robin repeated, "I still think it's time for you to quit Kara." Robin and Kara have always been cool to each other. These four really communicated, and so did their children. Miles's eldest son, George, was a year older than the twins. His youngest son, Ben, was a year younger. Both boys seemed to find the girls attractive, but the mothers were far from close. Kara had her own circle of friends from the country club. Robin had friends from the Democratic Party and several book clubs. However, their social gatherings usually went well. Kara was always sweet and interested in Robin's hobbies. The strange thing was that both women had been working in the same job for most of their married life administrative assistants. It ended when Kara was hired at Diamond 2 years ago. Robin was still working at her old firm. As the three of them sat there, Ted was lost in thought about recent events. He wondered about his reaction and why Kara had betrayed him so much. She had been working for Diamond for 20 months, and Ted was unaware of the problems. Their bed life, always good, has not changed. Kara did not work late and did not go on business trips. She went to the club most of the weekend, but she regularly came to the girls' home football games. Ted always attended all the twins' games, so Ted was shocked when Kara sat down next to him late one night and said, "Ted, I don't want to. I'm going to do something. I hope it doesn't ruin everything too much. I love you." Ted was instantly alert. He wasn't the type to react emotionally to what was happening. To most people, he seemed stoic. His parents were the exact opposite. They argued and fought like street dogs. Ted was the only child in the family, and his reaction, honed over the years, was no reaction at all. That was his initial stoic reaction to Kara. He didn't say a word and stared at her. It didn't unsettle her. "This has happened before," she continued. "Byron and I have developed, well, a crush on each other. His wife leaves every weekend from Friday to Sunday evening. I'm going to visit him at the manor when she leaves, starting this Friday. I have no idea when it will stop. He'll probably get tired of me. But I need it, Ted." Ted didn't say anything. In fact, he was quite calm inside. It was because he knew right away, as soon as she laid out this plan, that he would not be able to stop her, nor would he try to do so. He also knew that Diamond was as good as dead. So was their marriage. What he hasn't fully decided yet is what to do with Kara. He had always loved her. She was a pretty good mother, but he knew well that she was self-indulgent and cared about her status. He saw it, but didn't pay enough serious attention. Now these negative qualities have reached their peak. It was unexpected, and not even in her nature. He was considering a decision about Kara, and almost immediately remembered the rifle in the garage closet. Kara was startled when Ted, after about a minute, smiled. He had such a reaction when he thought about the rifle. Kara was not only amazed, but also unsettled by his smile. It wasn't a fake smile. She hadn't expected this. She said with some heat, "Do you think there's something funny here?" He smiled at her. "Not at all. But that smile." She felt a tremor from that smile. Ted stood up and asked, "Have you already made love?" Kara paused. "No. Well, a few kisses, that's all for now. I'll sleep in the guest house. Let me know when you're done with the rich boy. Then we'll see what's left." As he spoke, Ted was climbing the stairs to pack his things for the night. Kara was sitting in the living room. She was unhappy with this turn of events. However, this was what she wanted to do, and she intended to do it. However, she felt lonely being alone in bed. It was Wednesday. It's only one more night. She was so looking forward to the weekend with Byron. She longed for him. He was younger, he was 30, he was rich and educated, and he was well built. She realized this when she saw him working out in the office gym without a shirt. Her idea was to get enough of him while his wife was away on the weekend. She understood that this situation would continue for another couple of months. Then, depending on how they get along, maybe they'll make some kind of permanent agreement. Maybe so, maybe not. She loved Ted. She liked how well he treated their daughters. She liked that he had given her a good life. But she was restless for a while, and she was very attracted to her boss. She wanted it, and she was going to get it. She was sure that she and Ted would manage somehow. Ted thought about a lot because he hardly slept on Wednesday night. The twins were going to stay with friends all weekend. He'll do some scouting, check the weapons. Maybe he can distract himself a little. On Thursday, he went to his usual cafe for lunch. A nice young woman, Nora Hansen, sometimes dined there. Sometimes he and Nora had lunch together. Nora was in her mid-20s or so, had a pleasant athletic figure and dark hair. Something about Nora reminded Ted of Robin. Something about her appearance and her behavior. Ted and Nora have been flirting a bit for a few weeks. However, until Kara announced her intention to cheat, Ted had absolutely no intention of pursuing Nora. But what about now? Nora was there that Thursday. She was just sitting down when he came in. He ordered a ham sandwich and sat down next to her in the booth. It was somehow different. He usually sat across from her. Nora was not a fool and was used to being pestered by guys. She couldn't help but pay attention to it. She felt pleased that Ted was sitting next to her. She had been saving a place for him for 2 weeks, but until now he either didn't understand or didn't want to take the hint. She knew Ted was married, and yet he was a temptation. Nora turned to him and gave him a killer smile. "Has something changed, huh?" He smiled back at her. "Yeah, my wife decided to fool around with her boss." Nora put her hand on his thigh. It was a hard thigh. And I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner and dance on Friday night?" "Oh, Ted, I would really like that." Very strongly. A soft voice. Gentle. A silly grin appeared on his face. He felt stupid when he realized that. She patted his cheek. He was as hard as a rock, and he did everything to restrain himself. She stroked his bulge. He stroked her cheek and kissed her lightly on the lips. "I'd better not stay here. We could be arrested." They exchanged phone numbers. Back at work, Ted felt like a schoolboy. Some of the staff noticed this. Kara noticed it too when Ted cheerfully came home after work. Once again, her husband, with whom she had lived all these years, surprised her. She said, "I made lasagna and some salad." She considered it as a peace offering. She was convinced that Ted would take her adventure hard. His answer was all the more unexpected. "Thanks. Just in time, I'm hungry." His mood had clearly improved. Kara was suspicious and wondered if he had already done. "What? Have you moved on?" God. He washed his face and they sat down to eat. Kara has made up her mind. "It seems to you." "Well, I'm going to his house tomorrow." He glanced at her. He decided to put some effort into it. Ted felt he owed it to the children. "It's not too late to stop, Kara. I firmly believe that you will regret it in the end." She hesitated. It was a different Ted. He said it with complete sincerity and confidence. For a moment she was overcome with love for him. She struggled with it. "I need this, Ted." He smiled at her. "I don't believe you and I use the word need to mean the same thing, Kara." She got up and put the plates away. "I hope you see your way clearly and will go to bed with me tonight." "No, I told you. You'll see me when you're done with your lover. It will be seen there." Kara was disappointed. She had visions of a pleasant night of lovemaking that would put a friendly end to this phase of their marriage, but this was not to be. She realized she was done with it when she talked to Ted the other day. She was sad about it. Ted hesitated before heading to the guest house. "Maybe something will come back then, Kara, but most likely not." He walked out the door. Kara sat down at the table, thinking. At that moment, it became clear to her that she was risking her marriage. She used to cherish the idea that everything could go back to normal when her affair was over. Now she knew that it was naive. If she continues to date Byron, It is likely that her life will change dramatically later, and there was no real way to predict what form it would take. She had almost decided to give up the affair when it dawned on her that even if she gave it up, Ted might never treat her the same way. Yes, he would never see her the same again. She decided to go ahead. Friday evening. Kara was packing her bag when she left for work on Friday morning. Everything you need, as well as a new, tight-fitting nightgown. She got nervous when she saw Byron at work, but he smiled broadly at her and kissed her in his office. No doubts and reflections? Your husband? Doubts. I really had them. But I want you so much. She stuck out her tongue and licked her lips. Byron was delighted. They left work in different cars. Employees at work were not supposed to know about the weekend plans. Kara arrived at the manor at 6 in the evening. She parked. Byron opened the door for her and invited her into his luxurious house. When the door closed, he took her in his arms and kissed her. She disappeared into him. She was so excited. They headed for the stairs. Byron scooped her up in his arms and tried to lift her up the stairs, but he had to put it down halfway. She realized that Byron was not as strong as Ted. She hurried upstairs and headed for the master bedroom. The bed was made. Everything was ready. Byron took her in his arms again. They kissed. Kara quickly took off her dress. She wasn't wearing stockings, so she was only wearing a bra and panties. In front of Byron, she took off her bra and then her panties. He was licking his lips, literally. And here she is naked with a new man for the first time since she got married. It was so exciting. Byron was shirtless and shoeless. Kara knelt down in front of him and unbuttoned her trousers. Kara kissed him. Then she pulled off his boxers and looked at her new prize. She thought it was beautiful. He rolled off her and they clung to each other. Kara was satisfied. Maybe it all happened quickly, but it was very stressful. She was sure that they would reach new heights later. Byron was delighted. He conquered this married woman and tied her well to himself. He knew he was a better lover than anyone she had ever experienced. I just knew it. He may have come quickly, but so did she, and much tougher than his own wife. Her pulse was much more intense than Miranda's. Kara decided to see what she could do to prepare Byron for the second round. After that, he invited them to have dinner. He had robes for them. They went downstairs. A small feast was prepared and Kara found herself starving. They ate and talked. Did you like it? Byron was unoriginal. Kara nodded. Of course. And you? The very best. Kara sang, just the best, better than everyone else. Byron didn't know this song. He looked puzzled. Kara and Ted often sang it to each other. She was a little ashamed that she had used it with Byron. After dinner, they went back upstairs and watched a romantic movie in the bedroom. Byron wanted more love, but Kara wanted to watch the movie to the end. Kara was impressed that Byron was able to do it 3 times in this way. However, the third time made a slightly less impression on her. Ted picked Nora up from her apartment at the wheel of his classic MGB convertible. It was his hobby, one of them. Nora was delighted with the trip, and with Ted. He looked great in his blue suit. And Ted was delighted with her spectacular dark red dress with a plunging neckline. He took her to the Willington Hotel, where there was a nice restaurant. They had a great dinner and then went to a dance floor nearby. The place had a combo playing a mix of old rock and a bit of swing. Ted was athletic and always a good dancer. One of the reasons he liked Kara was that she was gifted in that way too. So is Nora. Nora was light on her feet and oh so sensual when she moved. Ted was completely fascinated by her. She reminded him more and more of Robin, only younger and a better dancer. They danced until at some point they both suddenly wanted to find another place. Nora got into the car and looked at him. Take me to your house. Yes, take me to your place. Ted restrained himself during the trip, drove very carefully. 15 minutes later, he opened the front door and let Nora in. They couldn't get out of the living room. Nora quickly undressed and Ted returned the favor. Then they stood up, staring at each other. Nora was the first to attack Ted and knock him down on the couch, and they started with an intensity and zeal like never before. And yet Ted was able to resist. He was on edge, close, but he held on, vibrating. Nora had never experienced anything like this. In the morning, they woke up in the sunlight. Ted made breakfast. Nora just looked at him when he did it. She was in love and she knew it. She didn't trust it, but she felt it. Then she said it to him when he was serving eggs and toast. I'm in love with you, Ted. I just have to say it. Ted was surprised. He thought about it and said, I believe that this feeling is mutual, It may be hard to believe. So fast. They're done with the eggs. What now? Nora asked. Ted smiled. Guess what? He picked her up in his arms again. Kara and Ted's weekend continued in the same spirit as it had begun. Kara was pleased with Byron. Ted thought he was head over heels in love with Nora. On Sunday afternoon, Kara and Byron sealed an agreement to see each other next weekend. Ted and Nora began to think about what to do. They set a date for next Friday, depending on what Kara had planned, and they agreed to meet for lunch every day. Ted dropped Nora off at her apartment. She was a lawyer and, despite her youth, could afford a good place to live. Meanwhile, Kara drove home from Byron's. Ted had just returned when she walked in the door. They stared at each other. Ted had such a smile. There was nothing he could do about it, and Kara saw it. She asked, "How was your weekend? Lonely? How's Richie Rich?" Ted chuckled. If Kara had been honest, she would have said, "He was exciting, but you're better." Instead, she said, "He was great. I'll be leaving again next week. The girls won't be back until next Sunday evening." She knew something had gone wrong with her plan. Ted was too much happy. She was also nervous because she didn't know how to tell the girls what was going on. They ordered Chinese cuisine for dinner. Ted had lunch with Nora every day during the week. They had a plan to go to a concert on Friday and spend the weekend at her place. Ted and Kara communicated mechanically throughout the week. At work, Kara and Byron were careful. At home, she hoped Ted would relent. There's no chance. He slept in the guest house every night. In the evenings, he watched baseball or read. I didn't communicate with Kara. In fact, he ignored her, a frozen marriage. While at the guest house, he would go out through the backyard and inspect the diamond estate. He had Google Maps and night vision goggles. He began to build a diagram of this place in his head. He also bought a device for cash that directionally amplifies sound. He and Nora had a great time the following weekend, but then she had to leave for Sunday lunch with her parents. So, in the morning, they had their last meeting, and she left. Ted went to the diamond estate and found out something else. He had seen Diamond and Kara by the pool many times. It looks like that's where they spent a lot of time. He also found that the directional device was working fine. He managed to overhear some of what they were saying to each other. He found it boring. By the third week, the twins were at home. Of course, they noticed that their parents had actually separated. At dinner that Tuesday, Claire asked, "Mom, Dad, what's going on?" Kara said, "We have some problems. We'll figure it out. Don't worry." Then the girls looked at Ted. He shook his head. "The truth is that your mother decided to enter into a relationship with her boss, so I moved into a guest house. What will happen in the long run has not yet been decided." Kara was angry at Ted for putting it that way. However, there was nothing to object to. Kara got up and ran up the stairs. "Are you getting a divorce, Dad?" "I don't know. It's not all decided yet, but, can you keep your mouths shut?" The girls answered in unison, "Yes." "Promise?" "Yes." "I have a new friend. I'll introduce you this weekend when Mom goes to her new boyfriend." The twins were smart. Claire said, "You mean you have someone you want us to meet? So it must be very seriously, right?" "Maybe. Until Mom left, I would never have met Nora. But Mom went, and then I did it. And who knows who wins with whom in the end." Beth grinned. Claire asked, "How did you manage to work so fast, Dad?" "It's not like you." "I kind of knew Nora from lunch. Maybe, I felt insecure or like I didn't meet the requirements. And it seemed to me that Nora would like to go on a date with me. She really wanted it. So..." The girls fell into silence, a thoughtful and not too comfortable silence. Ted let them think about it. Finally, he asked, "Is there anything else at the moment?" Claire asked, When are we going to meet her?" "I'll arrange something for this weekend. You have a game on Saturday afternoon, right?" "Yes." "Maybe Nora and I will come." "This is a serious story, Dad. You're not shy about showing up with her, even to the parents of our friends." Ted wasn't surprised that the girls turned out to be so neat and smart. He really believed that they would be able to figure it out. "Nothing is set in stone right now. I like this woman, and your mom ruined our marriage. But the situation is unpredictable. They left everything as it is." Kara never came downstairs. On Friday, Kara returned to Diamond's estate. She had a nice weekend, but sometimes she got bored. Kara was trying to introduce him to something new, but he wasn't that receptive. There was something else. Byron could do this at best, 3 times a day night, and he was fast and didn't like hugs. Since their affair was supposed to be secret, they couldn't go out, so they stayed at the manor. It was big enough for hiking and they had a pool. They spent a lot of time there. That same weekend, Ted took Nora dancing again. This time they went to a local club. One of her friends, Laura Blake, was there. Laura and Ted were introduced to each other. Ted wasn't really going to keep his relationship with Nora a secret. They danced amazingly again, then came home to Nora. Ted left at 1 o'clock in the morning. The twins were already waiting for him. Ted had a big smile on his face when he saw them in the living room. "You girls have a game tomorrow. You should get some sleep." Beth said, "We've been waiting for you." Claire added, "I see you have a big smile. I bet you are." Ted interrupted, "Never mind, go to sleep. The game is at 10. Nora will come with us." Nora arrived at 8:30. She was nervous. Ted was nervous. The twins were nervous and insecure. When Ted opened the door and let Nora in, there was a long pause when no one said a word. Nora looked great. Finally, Ted said, "Nora, this is Claire and this is Beth." Nora smiled. "Hello. I think it's a little awkward, but maybe we have something in common. I played college football. In the attack." "Where?" Beth asked. Nora said, "Notre Dame." Ted was stunned and the girls were impressed. Beth was a troublemaker and she had a soccer ball in her hands. She tossed it to Nora. Nora somehow picked it up with her right foot and threw it back at Beth with her knee, who caught the ball. Nora smiled. Beth and Claire smiled too. Ted said, then let's go." The girls were good at football. They usually united in the center of the field. The two of them tried to control the course of the game. Ted and Nora were watching. Well, Ted was watching. Nora, on the other hand, could hardly contain herself and jumped up and down on the seat. If the other parents didn't see her before the game, they saw her when the game started. It was a tense and exciting match. The other team showed their best side and pulled ahead by 2 goals. But the home team fought back and equalized just 2 minutes before the end. The opponent's coach made a substitution. Beth was standing next to Nora. Nora called her and said, "They'll try to walk on your side. Cut through and leave." Beth looked at Nora and nodded. Nora's analysis turned out to be accurate. Beth intercepted the transmission and headed for the gate at high speed. Ted was bouncing, but Nora wasn't. Nora was just watching, changing roles. Beth approached the penalty area and saw that the other striker on the right was offside by a yard. So she feinted to the left, lured the goalkeeper out, and then kicked the ball into the net. The game ended immediately after this score. Ted and the girls were celebrating with other parents. Nora took a step back. When the jumping stopped, Beth went up to Nora and asked, "How did you find out?" Nora laughed. "I watched the game. I see the game when I watch." She patted Beth's hand. 3 or 4 other parents noticed all this interaction. Joan Drake asked Ted, "Is she the twins' coach?" Ted said, "No, she's my friend, but she was playing this game." The girls' coach, Lena Holmes, said, "Of course, I remember her. She played for Notre Dame, in the attack." Ted called Nora over and introduced her to everyone present. No one asked any awkward questions. In the car on the way home, Claire said, "Dad, you can guess that they are all wondering." Ted laughed. "Let them." The 4 of them stopped for pizza. Then Ted and Nora went to her house for about 3 hours. They returned with a Chinese dinner. Ted was a little worried about the choice of dishes. After dinner, there was another long conversation about football. Beth Googled Nora and found out about her college career. Nora studied there for 3 years. There was an awkward silence around 9 o'clock. Then Ted said, "Girls, Nora and I are heading to the guest house." Beth said, "Keep your voice down, please." Nora laughed. "I promise to do my best to do it." After Nora and Ted left, the girls discussed it all. They really liked Nora very much, and they could see how much their father liked her. It seemed to them that the family life they knew was over. It was an abrupt transition. Claire said, "It's not Dad's fault, is it? Mom left to make love to this jerk. I really hate her for that." "Me too. I can only guess what she is. I mean, how could she just do that?" "Selfishness, that's all." "We have to accept the changes, Claire. Maybe it won't be so bad. I like Nora." "Dad likes her too, but they haven't known each other long, right? So we don't know. Maybe Mom and Dad will make up." "Maybe," Beth said dryly. They went upstairs and watched the video. Then they fell asleep. Ted and Nora had a wonderful time again. In the morning, they cooked breakfast for 4. Nora gave the twins an impromptu soccer lesson in the backyard. Then she had to visit her mom and dad. Ted and the twins had a long discussion about how to proceed. Ted tried to reassure them about their mother. He also assured them that even if there was a divorce, they would stay here in the house. He also told them that they would still have a lot of contact with both parents if they split up. They were really discussing how girls should react to Kara. Ted was trying to get them to be at least polite. Then Kara appeared in the doorway. Another awkward moment when everyone was staring at her. Then Kara said, "I want you girls to know that I love you, and I love Dad too." "All right," Beth replied calmly. "Mom, that's what you say, but what you're doing says otherwise." "I can't explain all this to you, I just needed it. It won't last forever." Claire said, "Oh, I'm not so sure about that." Kara came into the kitchen saying she was going to cook dinner. The other three looked at each other. Nobody said much. The dinner was delicious, but stressful. Kara asked about the football match. Claire said, "Beth scored the winning goal." "Congratulations, tell me about it." An awkward silence. Then Ted said, "Beth anticipated the transmission and intercepted it. I went all the way and scored past the goalkeeper." Kara praised the girls. Ted cleared the table and the girls went to their rooms. "I went to the guest house," Kara said. "Ted, understand. I mean, you could spend the night here." "No way. Are you done with this jerk?" "I don't know. Maybe. It wasn't quite as I had hoped. We stayed at home all weekend." "You know, Kara, people will find out. They already know that something is wrong. I don't want to embarrass you, and he doesn't want his wife to know. It's a pity. Ted, a little more, and it will end. Kara, please understand, you ruined our marriage. It's over between us. So stay as long as you want. Just keep in mind, he's all you have right now." Kara was shocked by this outspoken statement. She sobbed just once. She ran upstairs. By morning, she decided to treat everything as normally as possible. She had to go to work. Ted, too. The girls were preparing for a trip to their grandparents' house and then to a camp in nature. Ted had lunch with Nora and explained what happened after she left. Then he went home to help the twins pack their things. Kara's plans for the day were disrupted when her friend Joan called. "Kara, who is that sweet young woman who came to the football match with Ted?" Kara paused. "What young woman?" "Oh, I understand. She is a former football player. Very pretty. We were all wondering where you were." "Damn it." "Calm down, Kara. She and Ted don't—" "There were no obvious signs, you know." "Oh no? Well, they didn't tell me anything about her. What's her name?" "Nora." "Kara, where have you been? I've heard something that I can't believe." "Like what, Joan?" "For example, the fact that you left Ted for your boss." "It's not true. I didn't leave him." "Well, Jane Bright has a cousin at the club who works for Mr. Diamond at his house. My cousin said that on weekends when his wife is away, he has a woman there." "Damn it." "So it's you. Oh my God, Kara. God." "It shouldn't take too long, Joan. Only on weekends." "You're stupid. Ted already has another woman. And you know what? I don't blame him. She's younger and prettier. Your daughters seem to already know her. You screwed up royally." Kara was really shocked. That evening, she and Ted dropped the girls off at his parents' house. The trip home was quiet, but when they entered the house, Kara attacked Ted and slapped him in the face. He stepped back. "What the hell is that?" "You replaced me, you bastard. You're complaining. What did you expect?" "You must have prepared for my departure. How long have you been bullying me?" "I only knew her from the cafe. We didn't even kiss until you went crazy with your boss. So, fuck you." Kara sped away. Ted went to the guest house. Then he went out the back door, dressed in dark clothes. He found a good place to watch Diamond a Tree. That night, he intended to test the device for sound amplification. He set it up and waited until he saw Diamond and his wife on the terrace overlooking the pool. They sat and drank wine. When he joined in their discussion, he heard Diamond say, "And it won't last long. You have your boy toy." Miranda replied, "Only because you started it." Diamond said, "I support your style, Mira. Don't mess it up." "Why are they always married? Do their husbands know?" "Yes, I force them to tell their husbands about it. I like it better that way. When we have social events in our company, I smile at all the jerks. Someday, boy, you're going to cross the wrong path." "Nope. What will they do? They can divorce their wife, but they all have children. So they don't do that. They just accept it. So what if they get divorced after all? Very sorry. You are one of the biggest assholes in the world, by a real jerk." "But I'm good at making love, right?" Miranda laughed. "Do you think? My Dashoni is better." "Huh. Bullshit," Diamond laughed. From that moment on, the conversation reached a dead end. Ted got down and walked away. Up to this point, Ted had thought that doing Diamond was not only unnecessary, but also risky. It seemed to him that there was no need. After all, he had a hole now. Kara and her stupid antics allowed it. Maybe he thought he should thank Diamond. But the conversation he had just overheard aroused a burning anger in him again. The next day, he went into Miles's office and they talked. Nora spent the weekend with Ted and the girls. The couple slept in the guest house, but otherwise they communicated with the twins, almost like a family. There were more football lessons after Saturday's game. Ted and Nora had a fantastic time in bed on Saturday night, as usual. As they lay in bed, Nora asked, "What's going to happen next, Ted?" I mean, maybe it's weird to ask this, but are we exclusive? Ted laughed. You mean, do I make love to my wife on the side? Nora giggled. I'm definitely not going to do that. I am a man of one woman. You'll be that woman if you want to be. I feel like I'm ruining a marriage. You two have been together for so long. Not you. As soon as Kara left for her boss, I was done with her. After a few hours, really, very quickly, I felt it was liberating. And I got the benefit. I'm glad of that. The next morning, they had another fun visit and then went to cook breakfast. Nora went to her parents' house a little early to help her mother with an unusual cake. Ted told the girls that he was going to ride a bike with Miles. He'll see them later. He hugged each one tightly and left. Earlier this week, Ted prepared a rifle and left it by a tree, loaded and wrapped. When he hid his bike and headed there, he half hoped that someone had taken it, but everything was in place. He had serious doubts even when he was cornered, but he kept remembering that asshole's conversation with his wife Miranda. And then he saw his almost naked wife kissing a guy. He thought, to hell with it. It's time to end this shit. When Ted and Miles were sitting and drinking beer after the bike ride, Robin ran out of the house. I saw it on TV. Diamond was shot. He's dead. Diamond is dead. Ted stood up quickly. What about Kara? They said that a woman was present, but she was not injured. Miles exclaimed, My God. He took out his phone and turned on the newsfeed. Miles kept Ted's cell phone with him throughout the trip. It was in his fanny pack. He waited for Robin to look at his phone and handed Ted the phone. But Robin saw it. She didn't think much of it at the time. Ted tried to call Kara. No response. He said, I'd better go home. Maybe someone called. He rode off on his bike. When he returned home, the landline phone was ringing. Hello? Is that Ted Vincent? Yes. This is Detective Harvey from APD. There was a shooting, but your wife was not injured. You're talking about Diamond. My friend told me. What happened? I can't comment on that. Mr. Diamond is dead. Your wife is here at the station. She is completely shocked. Will you be able to come get her? Of course. Where to? The main office. The 3rd floor. Contact the front desk. Ted put on shorts and a t-shirt over his cycling gear. He had a wallet and a phone in his waist bag. He took the car keys and drove off. He had no idea what to expect. He was invited to a conversation. He was told that he would be able to see Kara after everything was completed. Detective Harvey turned out to be an elderly white guy who looked fit, though gray-haired. He had a partner, Stella Blaine. She was an attractive brunette, big and tall. Ted sat with them in a small room and answered all their questions. They asked him how his day had been, and he told them about it, about riding a bike and all that. They then asked if he knew that Kara was involved with Diamond. Yes. How did you feel about it? It was Harvey. I didn't like it, but I moved on. What does this mean? I have another interest. Another woman. Oh, so you have an open marriage? No. When she announced that she was doing it, that's how I reacted. Do you have a weapon? Yes, I have a gun safe. We'll need to look into it. Good. Well, let's go home together. The police found out a lot of details about the bike ride, addresses, and who else Ted was dating. Then they left him in a small room for a while. The door was locked. Ted was just sitting there looking at his phone. About 15 minutes later, Harvey returned and asked if they could look at the phone. Ted said, I have something on my phone about work that I don't want to make public, nothing illegal. We could get a warrant. He decided to just let them take the phone. He was told it would take 30 minutes. Then they took him to the square. She was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, not her. She looked scared. Ted said, Kara, are you okay? No, my God, he was shot at. I was right there. There was blood everywhere. I'm sorry, Kara. As soon as they're done with my phone, I can take you home. Okay, Ted. Pause. Ted, I'm sorry about all this, but we can talk on the way home. He hugged her. Soon the detective brought the phone and the couple left the station. When they were in the car, Kara asked, Ted, did you shoot him? No. Maybe I don't regret that he was killed, but I didn't do it. Kara stared at him. I know you. You could have, but you found that girl, so… I just didn't do it. Did you see him get shot? No. I heard a shot and it exploded all over. Now she was crying. She was sobbing. Ted stopped the SUV in the driveway. He escorted Kara inside and led the police officers to the gun safe. They examined the weapon and asked about the cartridges. There was an unopened box of .30 caliber cartridges. They were not interested in other ammunition. When they returned to the street, Harvey turned to Ted and said, We'll take DNA and fingerprints from the rifle we have. I would advise you not to get involved in this, Mr. Vincent. Well, I do not know about any weapons, and I did not shoot anyone. Good. See you. Ted went inside to deal with his wife. However, before doing so, he called Nora and told her what had happened. She knew some of the details. He asked if she would come back later, as soon as Kara calmed down. Then he called his parents and daughters. They discussed the events of the past day for a long time. One of the questions was whether the twins would go to an outdoor camp next week. It was decided that they should leave to avoid any commotion that could be expected. Kara took a long shower. Ted asked about her mental state. Not surprising. He was waiting for her when she came out in a bathrobe. It must be difficult. Have you cleaned up enough? She smiled. No, but the water ran out. Yes, I guessed it. What can I do for you? Well, maybe we can order a pizza. I'm starving. Ted did it. Kara looked at Ted over the top of the pizza. I was thinking about you. I'm not so sure you're innocent. Where were you today? On a bike ride with Miles, I told the cops. He might lie for you. Yeah, but he doesn't have to lie. I admit that sometimes I have some anger issues, but I didn't shoot that jerk. He was a jerk. You were right about that. Are you going to divorce me? Maybe. I mean, you threw it in my face, Kara, after all these years. You needed some rich boy. I agree that he was good looking. He was good. Honestly, Ted, he wasn't. In fact, he didn't match his appearance. Really? Really. You have some woman, Nora. I was told that she was younger and more attractive. Yes, she is quite attractive and athletic. She played college football. And she just picked you up right away. I bet you used it before I had it. Byron appeared. No, maybe around the same time. First we went dancing. Why are you interested in this? I probably won't have a job. You're going to leave me, I know. I have to live, and we have a prenuptial agreement. I won't let you starve, and maybe you'll have a job. Maybe. Miranda probably isn't too happy with me. Ted's phone rang. It was Nora. He went into the living room. Kara followed him at a distance. She had heard their declarations of love. If she had been wearing shoes, she would have kicked herself. When Ted was trying to persuade Nora not to come, Kara came into the room. Let her come, Ted. I think it's time for us to meet. 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang and Ted let Nora in. Kara was already dressed. She looked tired, but still attractive. The two women stared at each other for perhaps a full minute. Then Nora said, I'm sorry, you must be very shocked. Thanks, this is true, it's all so confusing. You took my husband. You left him. It's not my fault. They were about 10 feet apart. Ted took a position to intervene if necessary. Kara was trembling. She started sobbing again. Nora stepped up to her and hugged her. Kara was crying on Nora's shoulder. Ted was amazed. Nora sat Kara down on the couch, keeping in touch. There was a place for Ted, too, and he sat down next to Kara and hugged her, too. Kara was sobbing, gasping for air. She was sobbing, such a fool. Sorry, such a fool. Kara's crying subsided. She sat up a little and asked Ted, Do you think the hot water is ready? Probably. She got up to take another shower. After she emptied the tank again, Ted gave her a pill and she fell asleep on their bed. Ted and Nora went to the guest bedroom. They didn't want to leave Kara alone in the house. They watched the news at 10. Diamond's murder was widely publicized. As it turned out, Diamond had many affairs with married women who mostly worked for him in one way or another. So Ted was far from the only suspect. Later on CNN, it turned out that someone also had business reasons to eliminate Diamond. And finally, there were suggestions on the internet that Diamond's wife might have been involved. Ted turned off all media after 11. He and Nora went to bed. Neither of them really wanted to make love at first, but Nora was silent. Ted woke up early and checked on Kara. She slept until 9, then took a shower. At 10 o'clock, the three of them were sitting at breakfast and eating pancakes made by Nora in a hurry. Mozart started playing on Nora's phone. She answered, and it was the police to arrange an interview. Nora asked Kara and Ted, "Should I ask them to come here?" Kara nodded. "We will be able to get the latest news." So at 11 o'clock, Detectives Harvey and Blaine came and took Nora to a private room to take a statement. It took about 25 minutes. Then they all met in the living room. Kara asked, "Is there any news about who did this?" Blaine said, "Not yet. A lot of people had a motive. Including you, Mr. Vincent." "We've already discussed this," Ted said, frowning. "Yes. Well, thank you all for your cooperation. They're gone." Robin called, said the police had come to take a statement. They were polite, but persistent and scrupulous. Ted told her he would see Miles at work. All three of them were at a bit of a loss, not knowing what to do. "Should I leave?" Nora asked. Kara said, "No, I understand. Ted might want you to stay." Ted nodded. They were all sitting in the backyard drinking coffee. Kara regained her composure, but she seemed sad. Ted and Nora seemed to be expecting more problems. Kara was holding on to her temples. "I keep seeing him bleed out. He still hadn't moved. I wonder if I'll always see it." Nora seemed to want to comfort her. "In my course on the psychology of grief, it was said that images are the most persistent thing, but over time they fade and fade." "I really hope so." Kara's voice broke. "Do you have any news from work?" Ted asked. "No, I worked directly for Byron. I really acted as a kind of dealer of goods sent to him. I skipped some things to him and took care of other things myself. Whoever takes this place will need someone like me." "Who will it be?" Nora asked. "My only guess is Miranda. I know what was in his will because I signed it as a witness. She gets everything except some things for his mom." "Okay. Do you want to work there?" "Yes. Like I said, I need to support myself, huh?" Ted looked at Nora. "Well, until you get back on your feet. Did you two sleep in the house last night?" It is clear that this worried Kara. Nora nodded. "In the guest room. I hope it will last for some time, until I get back on my feet." There was a double meaning in Kara's words, and neither Ted nor Nora missed it. Ted didn't mind. "Everything will work out by itself, and the girls will be back for a while next week." "Nora, I was told that you went to their game," Kara remembered. "Yes, it was exciting. I missed it." Kara sobbed again. "I feel like such a fool. He had a string of women. He manipulated all of us." "Well, he was a handsome asshole. I made a big mistake." Nora tried to calm her down a little. Ted said, "I think you've been unhappy for a while. Here at home, not at work." Kara thought about it and said, "It's true. I do not know what caused it. Maybe something like the grass is greener." She paused. "Then a big hole opened up and swallowed up my life." She got up and ran inside. After a while, the clink of pots and pans was heard. Kara baked a chocolate cake, which was ready by noon. Eventually, Nora and Ted came into the kitchen and watched, talking incoherently about something. They ate sandwiches while the pie cooled enough to be covered with icing. So the day went on. Nora made burgers for dinner and Kara made a salad. The three of them were doing something, but they hardly talked about the future. Kara went to bed at 9 o'clock. Twice she woke up from nightmares, once screaming. Ted came in and calmed her down. The next morning, Tuesday, Nora had to go to work. Ted wanted to go to the office too, but he was worried about Kara. While he was thinking, Kara's phone rang. It was Miranda. Kara turned on the speakerphone. "Will you come to work today?" "Do I have a job?" "Yes, I understand that the situation is not easy, but something has to be done and you can't be replaced right away. So despite your stupidity about Byron, I need your job." Kara looked at Ted. He nodded. "I can be there in an hour." "Good. Come to the house. Go from behind so you don't get caught." Kara met Miranda in the office on the second floor. Miranda held out her hand for a handshake and Kara took it. Miranda started. "I'm curious, before we get down to business, why Byron was able to get you. I saw your husband. Did he disappoint you?" "Oh no, but Byron looked so good." "Yes, but it wasn't like that. Actually, it's not that good." I've already started to understand that. Not bad, but no more. At best. He had a tendency to fade. Perhaps you and he haven't reached that stage yet. Maybe. Well, let's get started. The two of them worked all day, bringing Miranda up to speed. They also considered how to get rid of Byron, but the body has not been returned yet. At 6 in the evening, Miranda looked up from her work and asked, "Can you stay for dinner? We still have a lot to do." "Of course. I have Ted and him at home. Girlfriend." "That's what I heard. Is she pretty?" "Yes, and young. He used it the first night I left." "So they're really connected?" "It looks like it. My girls like her too." Miranda looked at Kara and smiled. "Well, if you need relief, I can lend you one of my toy boys. They know how to satisfy a woman." Kara blushed. "Miranda, thanks, but I'm not ready yet. Just let me know. You know, now that we women run the company, maybe the guys will have to make room. Is there anything you need?" "Well, if it comes to that, a toy boy will do. I don't want to destroy any family." "You're too sweet, Kara." They ate, and Kara went home at 9:30. Miranda has significantly increased her salary. Ted and Nora were interested to see how Kara was doing at work, given the complexity of the situation. Kara described her day and the work she has to do, and she told them about her promotion. "So I won't be a burden. It looks like I can support myself." It sounded pretty bleak. Ted said, I am," Kara interrupted. "You know, Miranda offered me a toy boy so I could use it if I needed it." I refused. While Nora gasped. "Really? What do they look like?" Ted was a little annoyed by this, but he didn't say anything. "I don't know. I didn't even know Miranda had them." For the next 6 weeks, Kara worked for Miranda 6 days a week, either in the office or at her home. The work was moving. Ted started getting divorced about 2 weeks later. This did not come as a surprise to either Kara or the twins. Miranda had hired a lawyer for Kara, but the details were easy to sort out. The parties agreed and signed a few weeks later. The twins stayed at the house with Ted and Nora. Kara didn't mind that much. She gradually moved towards peaceful coexistence with her daughters. They often spent the day off with her. Ted and Nora returned to the main house. Nora gave up her apartment. In fact, she took on the role of a mom for the girls. Kind of. The situation became more and more comfortable. One night, Nora and Ted, having completed another pleasant session of love, snuggled up to each other. "Nora, do you want to get married?" Nora tensed. She looked at him. "Yes." They kissed. Nora said, "I want children too." She looked at Ted with some trepidation. He hugged Nora. To plunge into changing diapers again? All right. They kissed again. They got married 6 months later. 2 months later, Nora became pregnant. Meanwhile, the police investigation into the sensational murder of a millionaire has reached a dead end. Gradually, the crime disappeared from public view. From time to time, some journalist would bring up this topic, and it faded out again. The authorities spent a lot of time checking the alibis of everyone they thought had a motive, including 6 husbands. They came to nothing. Some didn't have an alibi or it was weak. But the police did not have the results of the examination of the prints on the rifle, and indeed no concrete evidence. And there were no witnesses, despite numerous public appeals to people who could be on a side trail near the shooting site. The police checked on Miranda. She was with 2 young men a few miles from the scene of the shooting. They checked to see if she ordered the murder, even though the shooting didn't seem like a professional execution. We didn't find anything, perhaps because there was nothing to look for. Their attention to Ted quickly faded. Miles had a very convincing alibi, a traveling salesman. Eventually, the case went into sleep mode from time to time, slightly reminding itself. Soon, Kara became absolutely indispensable to Miranda and the company. She was smart, passionate, and knew a lot more about operations than anyone else, with the possible exception of the late Byron. One Saturday afternoon, Miranda and Kara were going out. Kara had a room in this house. She went upstairs to take a shower. She had never gone to the pool before. Miranda didn't have any problems with the pool. It bothered her that Kara had a problem with it. So that Saturday, Miranda found Kara toweling off after a shower. She tossed Kara a robe. "Come with me." Kara was puzzled, but Miranda was the boss. She followed her. Miranda went to the door leading outside to the pool. Kara stopped. Miranda said harshly, "I have a treat for you, but you have to go outside to get it." Kara hesitated, but then she thought, maybe it's about time. She stepped inside. There were two sun loungers by the pool. Miranda walked past them. Kara followed her. There were two young men there. Both were naked. Both were beautiful and suspended. One was black, the other was white, but well tanned. Kara was stunned. Miranda said, "You haven't slept since the shooting happened. This is Damon and this is Chad. You have a choice, but you have to choose one." Kara stood there, looking at the men. "Hi, Damon. My name is Kara." Damon smiled. "Nice to meet you, Kara." Then she got up, straddled the chaise longue and Damon. "I hope you don't mind." She always had a thing about it. Now how could she resist? Why would she resist? Why didn't she do it earlier? Kara and Damon put on a real show for Miranda and Chad, who were just watching. Damon lasted 15 minutes, an eternity. When he filled it, it collapsed on top of him. Miranda and Chad rewarded them with applause. And that's how Kara's fear of the pool was overcome. Kara's life has changed dramatically, but not at all badly. She had her own choice of toy boys, and she had a job that she loved. She spent Sundays with her daughters, and sometimes with Ted and Nora. When Nora gave birth to little Bryce, Kara was thrilled, but a little jealous. Ted and Nora were very happy too. One day when the women were alone, Nora asked Kara about her bed life, and Kara told her, visually. That night, Nora's lovemaking with Ted was exciting. It has subsided a little since the birth of the child. Now Nora is back in the rhythm. From time to time, Nora and Kara would have another conversation. That was always enough. Kara thought of it as a family service that she was happy to do. Some compensation to Ted for her blunder. Soon baby Nikki appeared. As they say, all's well that ends well. One evening, after all the children had gone to bed, Robin found herself walking around the backyard with Ted. She stopped at the guest house and turned to him. "Nora and I like each other. I'm pleased." Ted smiled. "You know, you could have had me in your time, but I chose Miles. Do you know why? I've never been able to figure it out. You have an inner anger, maybe from your parents. You're hiding it, but it's always been there, and I love you anyway." "Maybe so, maybe. I rarely think about it. I'm thinking, sometimes. And yet you've made a good life for yourself and your loved ones, and for Miles and me too. But Ted, I saw Miles handing you your phone after your bike ride. I saw. It took me a moment to figure out what that meant. You took a hell of a chance, and so did Miles. One damn chance." Ted was silent for a while, looking at Robin. "Do you think I need to get some kind of consultation?" Robin smiled. "Don't do this, it's you. That's how it was and will be. And remember, Miles and I love you anyway." They left together to join their spouses.